Hey, welcome back to the Max Revenue Show. This is our weekly series that we are calling Diary of a New Producer, where we follow Ian Cognito. He's a brand new producer, basically no experience, and we watch his journey, give you a look behind the curtains into how he's building or trying to build $1 million book of business. My name is Micah. I am his mentor and also your host today, and a partner at the Max Revenue Group. So let's get into this, folks. If you missed the previous weeks, I think week 1 through 19 or 20 now, go check them out. There's a ton of good information. Every single week covers different topics that Ian and I talk about. And I know it'll be helpful to you if you're a new producer or if you're even a seasoned producer trying to grow your book. All right, so this week, what we're going to talk about is 3 different things. First thing is communication. What form should you be using? Calling, emailing versus dropping in person. Second thing we're going to hit on is your biggest competition. And let me tell you, it's not another insurance agent. And the third thing is it takes 2 to tango, right? And we're going to talk about finding prospects who are actually interested in what you're having to offer and not just using you. All right, so without further ado, topic number 1, communication. Obviously, it's the foundation of everything we do in life. And specifically as a new producer, it's vital. I don't need to tell you that. You already know that. But calling versus emailing versus dropping in person. Ian and I were talking. He has a big prospect he is working on. If you've been following our series, you know this. It's a 6-figure deal, and it's now been a week past when they told him that they would be back in touch with him. What should he do? And I said, hey, this is time for a phone call. It's not an email, because there's one different idea that we have in our back pocket that I think it makes sense to talk about, but this isn't something you want to put into an email with a prospect. It's something that you want to have a phone call with them. Now, if they were 5 minutes away, I'd say it'd be an in-person visit, but they're 4 hours, right? So in my opinion, this needs to be a conversation. And this brought up the idea of saying, hey, some things are fine to communicate via email, a follow-up or whatever, but when it's this late in the process, you want to get on the phone and just talk with the people. Let them explain things. Maybe they have some doubt or confusion that could be a lot better answered with your voice, right? And emailing just has some limitations. So in these scenarios, I would recommend jump on the phone and talk with people. Now, there's other scenarios where I think an email is fine. I had a deal I won once where the guy was very transactional. There was no competition. That's another factor. And I thought an email would do just fine. And that was true. An email, it worked great. I actually won the deal just by sending the stuff over on email. We did talk on the phone once or twice before then, but I didn't need to follow up on phone calls. It just wasn't necessary because of the way the guy operated, right? I just knew he was an email type of guy. I knew that there was no other competition. It was not really an emotional type of sale, and the things were pretty black and white, right? It was us versus his incumbent, and that was it. Now, the third thing I'd mention is in-person communication. I want to tell a unique story here too. Is there was a deal. I was competing against another agent, not the incumbent. So you have the incumbent agent, and you got 2 other agents, myself and another. I'm competing. We go present. They tell me the other person's coming in, and I'm not hearing back from them. And I call my lady back, and she's like, hey, the other agent, let's call him Joe, is coming in this day. And it was like 9 in the morning. So I made the decision in my gut. I felt like I got to go see this buyer in person. And I drove up. It was probably a 30-minute drive across town. Drive up. I'm in my car. I park, and I see the agent's car's there. He's coming out. I duck, actually. I was like, oh, shoot. I don't want him to see me. See him walk out. I walk right in. I say, hey, what do we got to do to get this thing done? I met with her dad, the ownership group. We got the signed stuff right then and there, and we won the deal. That's where sometimes the benefit of that in-person communication can get a deal across the finish line. I'm 100% confident. If I just would have kept calling and talking to her on the phone, emailing, I wouldn't have got that deal. I think it took me being there in person to get that deal done. Now, I don't think that is normally the case. I think a lot of times phone is very effective, but there are times where being in person makes a big difference. And so Ian and I just chatted about that, right? We talked for probably 5-10 minutes on just communication and how to handle this specific deal. But as you are out there in your careers, just keep this in mind, right? And if you have one mode of communication you're very comfortable, just take a step back and ask yourself, what does the client prefer? What's going to take to get this deal done, to move this deal forward? All right, so the second thing we're going to talk about is your biggest competition. This has been something that I've believed for a long time, but we get so wrapped up in what are competitive agents doing? What is the agency across town doing? I got to tell you, your biggest competitor is not another insurance agency. It's your prospects' complacency. I was meeting with a company that I just signed up last month, and I was telling Ian this story because before I share my story, let's talk about Ian quick. He was sharing with me, he has 2 deals that are like, they're just stalled out. We had our first meeting. I don't know what's going on. And that's where I said, hey man, this is part of insurance. People are just very complacent. And that's what you're fighting up against, right? And then I told him the story that I'm about to tell you. And it was, I have a new client, just one. They've been in business almost 9 years. We saved them like $60,000. Their program was screwed up. They weren't that happy with their broker overall. They were like 10 states away, halfway across the country. We won the deal via broker of record letter, put it in place for November. She's ecstatic. We actually met last week for the first time. And all prior communication, back to communication, was done on phone, right? And Teams and all that stuff. So this was our first time meeting in person, just to make that point, knowing that communication, it varies for everybody you meet with. But back to the point. I digress. As we're talking, she's like, I kick myself. Like, I'm kicking myself because you saved us so much. You improved our program. We settled all these years, but I was just so busy. I have so much stuff going on as a business owner. And it was just like, there was never a good time to do things. And it just kind of hit me. I was like, when I knew this, but when you hear business owners tell you this, and they say it all the time, insurance is not a top priority for them, right? It's not a huge cost because maybe it costs them $250,000, but their payroll is $2.5 million. Their materials are another couple million. And so in the whole scheme of things, they have a business to run. They're trying to grow their business. Insurance is one of those things they have to buy. So I think it's really important to keep that top of mind for you when you're out there producing and we're out there talking with clients. It'll create a different sense of empathy in you, right? And I think it'll help you position yourself better in your meetings with buyers because you know that like, hey, this is probably not a priority. And maybe you just, it allows you to take a step back and to recognize that and just even tell some of these prospects, like as you're talking, like, Jack, I get the sense, man, that this just isn't a top priority for you. Am I wrong? And that's okay if it's not. I can keep in touch. I'm in this for the long haul, right? When you start to say stuff like that, you build trust. And then also what that acts like is kind of like what Chris Voss says is, you throw those, I can't think of the term right now, but you throw those phrases out there that essentially get people off the fence one way or another, but you do it in a very professional way. So I just want to remind you, that what you think is important is not necessarily important to your prospects, right? And you got to solve for what they think is important. Now, this is one of the reasons I like our due diligence process because I think it can create a little bit more of a sense of urgency, and it can also uncover some pain they don't even know they have. And but even with that, even with the due diligence, they still have to be willing to invest some time, right? So due diligence is awesome, but it still takes 2 to tango, right? And that's the third point I want to talk to you about this week is, it's a two-way street, right? It takes 2 people to get a deal done. You, the salesperson, and the prospect has to be willing to give you information that you need. They have to be willing to invest time, right? And I think this is a big downfall of mine personally is I've gotten so systematic with the due diligence process and just kind of knowing if a deal's right for me or not, I think, where I sometimes can almost make it too easy on the prospect. And by too easy, I mean, it's important. You want to make it seem like it's not a huge time investment or a big time suck out of them. But you also don't want to make it seem too easy where it's like, oh yeah, I can just send you my information. That's it. Cool. And then you just kind of come back and tell me if I'm overpaying or not. Don't fall into that trap because then you're just going to get used, right? Because what business owner wouldn't do that, right? So you want to, when you're explaining the due diligence, you want to explain in a way that, hey, there is some investment, but there's no paperwork. You're not muddying up the marketplace. You're not making things awkward with your agent, but there is some investment I need from you. I need documents. Here's what I need. And then I need time. I need about 20 to 30 minutes for a discovery call where we're just going to have a conversation. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions around your operations, what your best practices look like, and what struggles you have, what challenges you're having. And that's it. So if they can give you that time, great. But if they're not going to give you that time, recognize that. And that's where you go back to maybe again, complacency is your biggest competitor in the situation, and you kind of bow out, but you do it respectfully, and then you stay in touch with them. We're in this for the long haul, right? There's no, You miss it this year, that's fine. It's just a continuous cycle, just like kind of the globe, right? Keep spinning, spinning, spinning. That's just how your insurance career goes. That's how your marketing efforts go. So that's all I got for you this week. The year's coming to a close. Next week's Christmas. The week after that is New Year's. So this is the last Diary of a New Insurance Producer that we're going to do for the year. Ian's going out, spending time with family. I encourage you to do the same thing. These are important. Taking 2 weeks off or whatever. You don't want to just sit on your hands maybe, but keep first things first, right? Keep your family first. That's why we do this stuff. So anyways, have a Merry Christmas. Have a Happy New Year's. I appreciate all your support. Hopefully you've enjoyed this series here in 2023. Hard to believe it's 2024 already in about 2 weeks. But again, appreciate your support. Subscribe, comment below, follow us on our various channels we're on, and have a great new year. Go get them.